Hello and welcome to St James's Church. I guess you'd say this is the heart of the old village of Didsbury before industrialisation. And there's been a church on this site since 1235. And I have the privilege of being the rector here, and my name's Nick Bundock. 1235 is a long time ago. The current building does not date from 1235. In fact, there's an inscription above me which you can just read, and somebody has deciphered it, which actually says 1620, and the patron was Edward Moseley. There is evidence in the tower, if you look very closely, of Saxon stonework, and that is a common feature of English churches, that older buildings are reused for the new building. And St James's has grown in many stages over the years, as you'll see when you go inside. But one of the things I love about St James's Church is its beautiful setting here on Stenner Lane, opposite the parsonage. It's got fabulous gardens. But the best thing of all is that it still involves the community in weddings and funerals and baptisms, in pastoral care, community events, in its partnership with other community groups, and with still having a lively and engaged congregation on Sunday. So welcome to our building. I hope you enjoy the tour. Our church is not just about the architecture or indeed the history. It's mainly about the community who use it and the community who benefit from it. And one of the things that makes us so proud of St James's is the way in which people over the centuries have celebrated and mourned and gathered at special times and on ordinary weeks here in this building. In many ways, St James's Church is one of the most significant buildings in Didsbury, partly because of its listing. As you're probably aware, buildings are either graded Grade 1, Grade 2 or Grade 2 star, and St James's is a Grade 2 star listed building, which means it's one of only 5.8% of all listed buildings, and that means it's of national significance. One of the most significant features of St James's Church is the chancel behind me. It's very unusual. If you stand at the bottom of the nave looking up towards the chancel, then it doesn't move in a straight line. The chancel actually tilts off to the side. It's an unusual feature called a weeping chancel, and there aren't many of them. It's meant to reflect the way that on the cross Jesus' head hung to the side as he was dying. And here at St James's we remember that with this weeping chancel. You'll probably be aware that most traditional churches faced from east to west, and so chancels and the big chancel window always faced east. And they face east because that is the direction of the rising sun. And so when people gather for worship here on a Sunday, or indeed any day, they're facing the direction of the rising sun, which is of course the most significant part of the Christian faith, the resurrection of Jesus at sunrise on Easter morning. On the south side of the nave we have a very historically important and significant monument to Sir Nicholas Moseley, who was in fact the Lord Mayor of London at one time. And if you look at the memorial, you'll see that Nicholas Moseley is at the top, and then you'll see his two wives, and although he had 6 children in total, only the 2 surviving sons are shown. The monument is made of marble and alabaster, and because it's from the 17th century and is very well preserved, it's seen as a significant feature in this church. Like many churches in England, we have all the usual features: pews, pulpit, stained glass windows. But we also have a font, and the font is where babies and indeed adults are baptised. The font in St James's, though, is not the original font, which has been lost to us. We're not quite sure where it is. It might be in a garden somewhere in Didsbury, and we've been spending time trying to track it down. The current font, though, is a Victorian font, and it is in the traditional place at the west end of the church. Traditionally, fonts were placed at the west end because before a person could enter the church, they needed to be baptised, so it's put near the main door. St James's as a building grew and developed over the centuries, and you can see evidence of the different stages of the building if you look closely. The tower was built in 1620, that's the oldest part of the building, and the newest part is the Victorian chancel here behind me. But actually, if you look closely, you'll see other eras of development. About halfway down the nave, we have two angels facing each other, and these mark the full extent of the 1620 building. We call them the Puritan angels because although they're supposed to be angelic beings, they don't look very happy and reflect the Christian faith of the time, which was rather sober. Here at St James's Church, we're fortunate to have a wonderful congregation, and there's been a worshipping presence here in the church since 1235. And some of the members of this church have been more famous or notorious even than others. One of the most famous members of this church was Edward Barlow, who was baptised on the 30th of November 1585. And Edward Barlow was an adherent to the Catholic faith. When England became a Protestant country, he refused to renounce his allegiance to the Catholic Church and became one of the Catholic martyrs. He was later sainted as St Ambrose Barlow, and a number of streets and indeed a school in Didsbury are named in honour of St Ambrose Barlow. His baptism register can still be seen in Manchester Central Library. Another famous member of St James's Church was Lady Anne Bland. Lady Anne Bland was a very generous benefactor who did much to increase the size and repair of St James's Church. She's also well known for having been the patron for St Anne's Church in town. And every year, a group from St Anne's Church in the centre of Manchester come to St James's to lay a posy at her memorial on the anniversary of her death. We're very fortunate here at St James's to have a wonderful tower of 6 bells and an enthusiastic group of bell ringers who are in here a number of times a week practicing and ringing the bells. The bells were actually cast in 1727 in Gloucester and taken here to St James's, and they've been here ever since. And those 6 bells ring out for weddings and funerals, baptisms and services on Sunday morning. And if you live in Didsbury, it's likely, especially if the wind is blowing in the right direction, that you'll hear the bells being rung.